Ron DeSantis is pushing a series of laws to effectively criminalize peaceful protests and perhaps legalize murdering protesters. I know that saying that seems crazy, but you got to catch up to Republican politics in 2020. So he tweeted, "Today I announced bold legislation that creates new criminal offenses," always good to create new criminal offenses, "and increases penalties for those who target law enforcement and participate in violent or disorderly assemblies." Yes, because if they were peaceful, if they were orderly assemblies, he would be totally willing to engage with them and possibly change laws as a result. Anyway, forget the rest of his tweet. Let's take a look at the Combating Violence, Disorder, and Looting and Law Enforcement Protection Act, which has got a nice Orwellian spin to it. So it's a bunch of stuff. All of those components are absolutely horrendous, but we're going to focus on a few. So it would make it a felony to, quote, obstruct traffic during an unpermitted protest. So it's a felony to obstruct traffic. Again, not violent, not rioting, not destroying cars. If you are in the road and it impedes someone for a moment, that could be a felony. Remember, in Florida, felonies can stop you from ever voting again. It also absolves motorists of liability for, quote, injury or death caused if fleeing for safety from a mob. Okay, Emma. I apologize. I'm not in a great mood.
It's okay.
We have had months of these protests now. Has there been a single instance in which someone in a car had to flee for their life from a disorderly mob where this would have been justified? Has that happened one time?
Well, there have been cars involved in protests, usually mowing down protesters, because I don't know if you know this, but protests often try to make things a little inconvenient for people. Ron DeSantis, if he were a governor back during the civil rights era, he would think that all of the protesters on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, who I'm sure he now hails as civil rights icons to score political points when he would be on the opposite side of it during that time, all felons. Go to get a felony charge for your disorderly conduct. I mean, that's insane because protests take place in streets. Sometimes they block traffic. I hate to break it to you.
Yeah. Look, I'm inclined, obviously, to agree with you, but it's very clear in the Constitution that you have all of these rights as long as it doesn't inconvenience anyone. If it inconveniences someone, not only is that not constitutionally protected, but you're a felon now. You're going to lose all access to your, any state level benefits. That's a part of this. Also, you won't be able to vote if you inconvenience anyone while exercising your rights.
Right.
That's what they're saying. And again, the reason I pointed out is no one has had to flee for their life. Nobody. It hasn't happened ever at all. Nobody has had to do that. But what has happened is both civilians and cops have run people down with their cars. We already know that this is a tactic that the right likes to use. They apparently picked it up from ISIS. They've used it to kill protesters in the past. And so now it's you're protected from liability for injury or death caused if fleeing for safety from a mob. Okay, so that makes it seem as if your life had to be in danger for you to be protected. But how do stand your ground laws work in Florida? How lenient are they on your ability to determine if your life is being risked? You know exactly how those work in Florida. If you kill someone, you will be protected. It doesn't matter what was happening, how peaceful it was, how many people were there. And that is the sort of thing that I could see sick right-wingers in Florida using. Okay, we already know there's a ton of right-wingers that want to run down protesters. That's the reason that these sorts of laws have been passed in multiple states. So now they know that they'll be protected if they do that. And all they have to do is say, I feared for my life.
Yeah.
That's not the only things. We're going to get to more, but Emma, continue.
No, and your point just about the losing voting rights if you're a felon. Wow. It's really easy now in Florida. They could just disenfranchise whole swaths of people with leftist political leanings if they show up and they are an inconvenience for traffic because they're protesting with Black Lives Matter. There you go. Cementing Republican power in Florida for ages to come.
Yeah. 100%. And so let's get into some of those more penalties. The proposed bill levies mandatory minimum prison sentences for striking law enforcement officers, including with projectiles, and contains an enhancement for throwing objects that strike officers or civilians, and for out-of-state protesters who even participate in a demonstration that turns violent. And again, it's not the protesters that get to evaluate whether it was violent or not. So if you're from out of state and you're in a crowd and someone else does something that they can spin as violent, you can be in legal trouble. And by the way, remember, all of these protests started as a result of people being infuriated by the decades-long police brutality, no justice, all of that. So what is the legislative outcome? Mandatory minimums if you do anything that hurts a cop. Nothing if the cops shoot you in the face with a rubber bullet, put out your eye. Is there anything about this? No, they're not even pretending for it to be balanced. The only result of protests against police brutality are protections for cops who brutalize people. That's what you get. And by the way, this is also these series of protests have given rise to this movement to defund the police. So that's in here too. There are provisions barring state grants to municipalities that defund police and terminate state benefits for anyone convicted of participating in a violent or disorderly assembly. So you can lose all of your state benefits if a protest that you were at is disorderly. And if any locality changes the level of funding to police, they can lose all state grants. So it's not up to remember, like they supposedly care about states' rights and all that. It's supposed to be about people actually being able to be involved in determining what happens in their area. No, if you ever lower the funding, that's it for your municipality, regardless of whether there's some sort of budget problem. No, everything else is up for grabs. You can lower that funding, but for the cops, it can only ever go up.
Yeah. Luckily, this is so clearly unconstitutional that it will be declared unconstitutional by what Mitt Romney calls our liberal Supreme Court.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so all these sorts of the Supreme Court is so important and people treat it as if it doesn't matter at all. God damn, what a stupid, stupid, stupid self-destructive political strategy.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.